Hello, amazing parents. Welcome to the workshop of learning to stand while lying down. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Jen Stewart, an Anat Banyel Method practitioner near beautiful Vancouver, BC. I have three kids. My middle daughter has a rare genetic disorder. That's how I found out about the Anat Banyel Method. And once I took her to her first practitioner, she was about 2 years old, and she was just learning how to walk. It didn't really look like walking. It looked like a lot of stumbling and falling. She had very, very poor balance, and she was very uncoordinated. She was missing a lot of the foundational pieces that I'm going to show you here today. I wish I had known about before I put her in positions that she wasn't ready for. She at that stage, she simply just wasn't quite ready to learn how to walk. She had some of the pieces, some of the foundational pieces, but there's huge gaps in her experience of moving under the force of gravity, of keeping her skeleton upright under the force of gravity. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about, things that I wish I would have known about. Back then, to make the learning experience for her faster. It might seem like you're slowing down because you're exploring movement in the lying down position, but this is actually the safest position for your child's brain to be in a learning mode. So if your child isn't coming upright into a standing position on their own quite yet, that just means their brain is missing little bits of information that you can give them in different positions. So wherever they feel the safest, that is the perfect opportunity to give them those missing information pieces. Typical babies learn how to stand by lying down first. So typical babies are exploring how to move their skeleton system, how to move their arms and their legs and their bodies, their whole system under the force of gravity in the safest position for them. So lying down is typically the safest position for most kids. Of course, if your child is uncomfortable at any moment or any time, make sure that they're comfortable, because the brain overrides any learning to keep them safe. So that's why propping your child up into positions that they can't get up into on their own is kind of counterproductive to them actually learning a new skill. Brains have an automatic response to any sort of danger or fear. If the person or organism feels like they're about to fall over, fear overrides any learning. So that's why the safest position is typically lying down for our kids. As well, there's another reason why lying down is also, you can use it to your advantage, is because while we're lying down, we can let go of chronically contracted muscles that are being used to hold us upright. So when we're upright, I'm sitting upright right now, I have to use some sort of muscular effort to hold my skeleton system to sit upright. To hold my big head in an upright position, I have to use some sort of coordinated muscular effort to hold me upright under the force of gravity. So really good movement, really well organized movement, is when you use the least amount of muscular effort. So if I learned to sit like this, which my daughter did, I propped her to sit before she was ready. So she learned to sit like this to balance out her big head with her arms. So she stuck her arms out like this because she didn't know, she was missing the piece of how to roll her pelvis, how to coordinate the movement of her pelvis. So she learned to sit like this, which she learned her experience, and it's very easy and fast to groove in that experience. And this experience of her sitting like this, she's almost 12 now, and she still sits like this. So her head a little bit back, her pelvis rolled. Now, that's how her brain organized herself to make something functional, sitting, happen for her. But because I put her in a position before she was ready, she was missing that that information of being able to use her pelvis, of being able to have her head in a different position. So this is still sitting, but I'm using a lot of muscular effort to hold myself upright, or else I'm going to fall over, which of course my brain is like, oh, you're going to fall over, better contract muscles, better stiffen things so you don't fall over. Versus, because she was missing this mapped piece of her pelvis, she didn't know it was there. Her brain didn't know that this was an option. So her brain kept her safe by contracting these muscles, and these muscles get chronically contracted over time. So it's a habitual pattern for her to sit like this. Versus if I sit like this, if I'm able to roll my pelvis and line up my head over my pelvis, all of a sudden these muscles don't have to be activated. These muscles don't have to be activated. I'm using less muscular effort to hold my skeleton upright, to hold my head off the floor with less muscular effort. And that's what we want for our kids. We want our kids to move through their experience, through their life, with the least amount of muscular effort, because then it gives them more options. In this position here, it's sitting, but you have very little options to pick up the toy in front of you, to pick up the toy here, or else I'm going to fall over. And I'm really, really contracted. It's actually quite hard to move and to do things, to be functional in this position. Now it's still sitting, but it's not very efficient sitting. I have to use a lot of muscular effort to keep me upright. Whereas this, when I'm more stacked on my bones, so my head is more over my pelvis and my spine has a chance to support me, I don't need as much muscular effort. And all of a sudden, with this not contracted, all these stomach muscles in the front not contracted, all of a sudden I have way more options. It's so much easier for me to pick up a toy over here, do something interesting there, do that. Reach up, I have more options because I'm using less muscular effort. So I hope that makes sense. I get a little bit passionate about it. Now that was an example in sitting, but it transfers exactly the same in standing. So when we're standing, it actually adds another level of your brain's heightened awareness in standing, because your head is higher off the floor. There's more risk to standing, especially if you don't have all those foundational pieces. So your brain knows that the head is a little bit higher off the ground, and your 2 feet, it's a less stable base than sitting on the bum, right? So your brain knows this. Your brain knows, there's a primitive thing in your brain that knows when you're in a precarious position or not. And if it's in a position that it doesn't have all the pieces, it doesn't have any options, it's going to tell the system to stiffen up, to provide safety by contracting these muscles so you don't fall and get hurt. And then it takes away the options for other movement. Okay, so this is a lot of movement because I'm more stacked over my skeleton system versus over here. I don't have a lot of options. I can barely even turn to the side because everything's so contracted. Okay, so that's the same for in standing as well. So that's what we're going to explore, is giving those little pieces of micro movements, of more options while your child is lying down. The safest position for your child, for their brain, is lying down. So in this lying down position, all of a sudden those stomach muscles, the tension in the muscles starts to let go. They feel pretty safe down there. So then you have the opportunity to explore the pelvis movements, to explore the leg movements, to explore how their body can function under the force of gravity. So how to move these limbs under the force of gravity with the help of all of the different pieces of their skeleton system. Okay, so that's what we're going to explore today. Is we're going to actually dive in, get our hands on our kids, start moving around, etc. So I'm going to show you two main movements that you can explore with your child to build up their body map of themselves, of how to move their limbs in space, of how to feel the coordination of their muscles, holding their skeleton system under the force of gravity. So we're going to use gravity to our advantage, and we're going to explore some micro movements around that to build up those micro movements that they might be missing for the pieces that they need to come into standing or to stand. So we're going to explore two kind of versions of this that I come back to again and again.